Welcome back to another episode of Estate Planning Nightmares and How to Avoid Them. I'm your host, Jon Braddock, the author of Click Here When I Die and the founder of My Life and Wishes, The Legacy Vault, which is an online planning and document storage solution created to make things easier for those you love. Today's guest is someone who brings heart, humor, and high standards to the often overwhelming world of estate planning. Holly Simpson is the founder and owner of Simpson Law Firm, with offices in Fort Mill and the Indian Land in South Carolina. She leads a powerhouse team that specializes exclusively in estate planning and estate administration, and they've become the trusted resource for families throughout North and South Carolina. But Holly's path to law wasn't exactly a straight line. It was a story of passion and purpose. She first became a licensed marriage and family therapist, helping families navigate life's challenges. But then, driven by her love of learning and her deep empathy for others, she graduated valedictorian of her law school class, all while raising 6 children who proudly cheered her on at graduation. In 2018, Holly launched the Simpson Law Firm with a clear vision to create lasting relationships with clients, provide legal guidance that truly brings peace of mind, and keep families out of court and conflict. Her firm is known for their transparent fees, prompt communication, and client-first approach, not to mention a philosophy that includes kindness, integrity, and just the right amount of Southern-style hospitality. Now, when she's not leading her firm, Holly is chasing her grandkids, who I'm told are not allowed to call her grandma, mentoring teens at church, running, playing pickleball, and rocking out at 80s concerts. Because yes, the best music and the best hair never go out of style. Holly, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Very kind introduction. I appreciate that.
Oh, my pleasure. It's so great to have you. We've known each other for, probably a couple of years now.
Yes.
And it was about time we got you on.
Well, thank you. I'm so honored to be here. What a great place.
Uh, it's my honor to have you. So hey, let's jump in, start at the beginning. So before becoming an attorney, you're a licensed marriage and family therapist. What made you pivot from therapy to law, or counseling to court? Not
Oh, it's
really a
great.
typical career move, right?
No, it's not. No, I did. I practiced as a licensed family therapist for about 12 years, and I really liked it. I did a lot of marriage counseling, and maybe I wasn't very good at it because some of my clients were getting divorced, right? And I see them working that court process and working with divorce attorneys, and those attorneys weren't calling them back and they were missing deadlines. And then I'd get to go to court sometimes to testify in child custody matters. And I just thought, this is exciting. I'm in the wrong role. I want to be the one asking the questions, not the one on the stand getting questioned, right? And so I just thought I'm going to go for it. I love school. I was always kind of a bit of a nerd at heart. And so yeah, I went back to law school while I had 6 kids. So
That's amazing. Uh, Michelle and I have 6 children as well, and I know how difficult that is raising children to begin with, let alone then going through law school and
it's a ride, that's for sure.
passing the bar. So did you know right when you decided, law is where I want to go, that estate planning was where you're going to go?
No, I actually, of course, wanted to go into family law because I just thought, I went for marriage counseling. I could help them navigate divorces. And I didn't last very long in there at all before I realized I did not like the conflict of all of it, especially around children. I didn't mind people, I did practice family law for a little while, but I didn't mind people fighting about their money and their assets. I love that part. I shouldn't say I love that part, but I'm okay at that part. But when they fought over their kids and kids were in the middle, I would just take it home at night and I'd worry about it. And they weren't even my kids. And so I just realized I needed to pivot. And I loved contracts in law school. I actually clerked for a business court superior judge. And I just love all things transactional and writing. And so I pivoted to estate planning. And here I am. And I've stayed, yeah, pretty much from the beginning. So
Yeah, it's interesting, and not that I'm a lawyer, but I know something about the law, and I know that family law is all about fighting. Uh, Estate planning, on the other hand, is to prevent fighting.
yes.
on the
Yes.
back end. So it's very proactive, take care of the problem before it occurs, right?
Yes, that's right. Trying to foresee all the problems. Yes, and put those in a document, a trust, a will, some kind of contract, so that down the road your family isn't in court and conflict after you pass away because it's been done right. So, yeah, it's a much more rewarding area of law. And interestingly, you might know this because you work with a lot of estate lawyers, I believe, but when they do studies about job happiness and job satisfaction for lawyers, like estate lawyers always come out on top. We're the happiest lawyers. So, another reason I love this area of the law.
Yeah, I love it, and that doesn't surprise me. As you and I were chatting earlier, it's like, I love estate planning attorneys. I mean, it's just such a great profession, and you're doing things to help people and resolve future conflicts. And it's got to be much less stressful than you know putting together arguments and opening statements and closing statements and grilling witnesses on the stand, right?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
And we also get to work with the best clients too, because our clients, if they're doing it on the planning side, they're not coming to us in crisis either. So we get happier clients usually from the beginning, unless, of course, we're doing their estate administration where they've just lost a loved one, but which is very difficult. But yeah,
Right. But the estate planning side, I mean, these are people who are coming to you because they love their family. They want to preserve
yeah,
assets, transfer wealth, and and
yeah. And they
and
sincerely care that things go right after they pass away. Yeah,
yeah, and avoid conflict because that happens all too often. Because
it sure
as
does.
as I say so often, and you can probably attest to this, that with our kids, I mean, we couldn't agree on what movie to go see, what we're going to have for dinner. And so if I mistakenly think that after I die, my family is going to agree on what happens to my stuff,
That's a
no.
really good point. Yes. I always say one of my
Uh,
favorite family vacations is because of the family disagreeing on where to eat. And, I don't like this, I don't like that. I love to go to a place where there's either a lot of buffets or like a cruise where nobody has to pick the restaurant. It avoids even conflict around dinner. So I love that you said that. That's very true.
very smart. So, so graduate is the valedictorian, which is a feat in and of itself. And from what I've heard with your own cheering section, what was that experience like? Balancing law school and family life. Did you sleep ever?
Yeah, not as much as I should have. Yeah, so it was a wild ride, but it was a lot of fun. I'm always a little bit of a nerd. I always have been going back. I've always loved school from first grade on, probably. And so I loved graduate school for marriage counseling. I loved law school. Not a lot of people love law school. I loved law school. I thought it was so interesting and stimulating to your mind. And then I got to give Papa John's a lot of credit for my grades. So we had all those kids. We ate Papa John's a lot. It's the closest. I love a lot of pizza places. It's just the closest one to our house, and it was right on my way home from law school. And they actually, at the end of one of the years of law school, they sent us some big lot, like a lot of coupons saying we were like their number two customer for their whole store. Like we ordered the most. So because I have feeding six kids, right? So I was like, oh, that's kind of embarrassing, but we didn't. You can't do everything for free. You can't cook great meals and be in law school and have six kids. But yeah, it was fun. It was a good ride. And I had a supportive spouse, so that helps too.
That definitely helps. So in 2018, you launched Simpson Law Firm.
Mhm.
What was your vision when you opened the doors, and how has it evolved since 2018?
Yeah. So after I graduated from law school, I worked for a couple of years for other firms, worked for a solo practitioner and then a larger firm, just to get some experience behind me. And at both firms, especially the larger firms, the culture wasn't quite what I didn't fit in. Let's say I didn't fit in their culture. And part of that was they didn't treat their paralegals and their support staff very well, in my opinion. And so I just thought, I didn't understand that because I knew if I treated my paralegal right, which I did, that they made my job so much better and they made me look so good because I'd have these great paralegals behind me. And I thought, gosh, I could just make that one little shift and open my own practice, treat my paralegals well, who will then treat my customers so much better because they're happy. Yeah. So we just did it with that idea of just if my paralegals are happy, I'm happy. We could provide great service. And we could also do a couple of things different. And one of those things that we could do different is that we can update people's plans more regularly. And so, it's typical for a large law firm, you get your estate plan done and you never talk to the lawyer again, right? It's like, oh, good, you got walked out with that great binder. And then 15, 20 years later, something happens, and maybe that plan doesn't work exactly like they'd hoped it to. So then they're walking back into that firm after they've just lost a loved one, but things in their life had changed. And we're you're on the other side saying, oh, I'm sorry, the trust says it has to do this, And I just thought, gosh, if I just checked in with my clients every 3 years proactively, and just said, hey, is anything changed in your life? Any new business, any new property, businesses, change in your family structure, change with your children, we could just make those updates, and it's not the cost of a whole new plan, but then that plan would really work for them at a time when they needed it. So really those two things, just like making sure their plans were up to date always, and that my staff was happy so that they'd in turn be happy with my clients, that yeah, it would work. So
Yeah, that's awesome and very impressive because I'm all about team. I can't do anything on my own. I need other people to make it a better experience for me, for the client, and everyone working in their own area of unique ability, right? Because if it was left to
yeah.
me to draft all the papers, they'd never get drafted. I could create a great plan, but it'd never be on paper. But in the past 7 years or so, I know that you've done so well, and your team, I believe you have almost 30 people on your team now. Is that correct?
We do. I think it's 32. You kind of lose count sometimes, but yeah. And then
Wow,
yeah, and then we just put a job offer out yesterday to another attorney, so that number will go up again. Yeah, so it's been a lot of fun. And part
that's
of
really
part of
exciting.
you'll know one of the core values of our law firm is to have fun, and part of that is just I want to enjoy coming to work every day, right? So I want to enjoy the people I'm working with every day. I don't think anyone comes to work every day because they just want to. Most of us have to be here to feed our families, right? And so since you got to be somewhere you prefer maybe not to be, might as well make it fun. So
Absolutely. I mean, this is what I was, as they always say, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
yeah.
Right. So, queuing up on something you mentioned about uh, the bigger firms is like, boom, here's your state plan. See you later.
Mhm.
And as we both know, life circumstances change. People, um, acquire assets and forget to title them in the
Yeah.
name of the trust and that. And I know you've carved out this unique identity that you do not view estate planning as a one and done. So can you talk a little bit about, what you do with your clients in your client care program?
Yeah, yeah. So there's a couple of things. So for every client that comes to our door, if they hire us to do their whole plan, like their whole will plan, which would include like documents for healthcare power of attorney, durable power of attorney, and if we do a trust plan for them, which would include all the documents for death and incapacity, if they hire us, then after they sign their documents, about 3 years later, we have automated emails that go out and just say, hey, thank you for working with us. It's been 3 years since you signed your plan. Then we just have a list of things that might have changed in their life to kind of, spark ideas. And then just like, hey, contact us if any of these things have changed. And then we just meet for free with them. Either a phone call, or often it's a phone call because they, come in, but that's a free conversation. And then the lawyer at that time, or paralegal, whoever they're talking to, can either say, you know what, the law hasn't really changed, so there's nothing on our end we need to update. And those changes that you've made, we can either, maybe we don't need to change them because of the way your plan's already drafted, or maybe you just change your beneficiaries, or maybe they do need to change something. And if they do, then we make the changes, they come in and sign it. And then 3 years from then, they're going to get another email. So the process would just
Right.
keep going. And then
Yeah,
we
because
also, oh, go ahead.
go ahead. No, you're fine. Go ahead.
And there's also we have a client care program as well, and those people, they get more often reminders, more frequent reminders. They get an email every year, and then their changes are free if they're part of our kind of client care program. So
That's awesome. And I assume that's for the larger plans, maybe those who also
yeah, if
have
you have a trust plan.
businesses. And yeah, yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
absolutely. But it's great because I think most people, the average person, I mean, the only reason I think about our trust, and I talk with my estate planning attorney every year about it, is because I'm in this world of talking about estate planning, and I know all the things that can go wrong if I do something wrong or whatever. But you don't think, is little Johnny who's not little anymore, but is that who should really be my financial power of attorney because
Yeah.
he went bankrupt last year? Uh, we might want to change that and appoint somebody else, right?
Yeah, things you couldn't foresee, right? Yeah. Or maybe,
Yeah,
a lot of times clients, their kids are very responsible, but maybe they marry a spouse that the parents don't deem are responsible. So, your son-in-law or daughter-in-law. So they think, oh, I need to pivot because of that decision. So, yeah.
uh, absolutely. Yeah, it definitely not a set it and forget it for sure. Um, you're known for a few signature philosophies, like always calling clients back,
Mhm.
treating them with the Chick-fil-A
I'm
kindness.
glad you guys.
Um, how do those show up, on a day-to-day basis in your practice?
Yeah. So in the beginning, a part of our success is, I believe, as well is attributed to the fact that the people that I hired to answer the phones, they're not just people with, no, I don't mean to be, they're not just young people who just freshly graduated from high school and have no life experience, no work experience. The people behind my phones, they're actually professional, educated. They know what they're talking about. They're very warm. So I didn't cheap out on my receptionist. How about that? And so and we have three people that's just their job. They answer the phones and they're really good at it. And so the idea is that we don't miss any calls at the firm. And so, you're very likely, it'd be very, very rare that you would call here and no one would answer the phone. And then you're going to get a friendly voice. And I think, yeah, just having some professional people, the first contact with our firm has just made a huge, huge difference and really made us grow. And then the Chick-fil-A part comes because, you know, we're in the South. Chick-fil-A is a big deal around here because I think they're all over the country now, but the chicken sandwich is pretty good, but there's other places that make good chicken sandwiches. But at least here in the South, the stores, those employees, they're just taught anything you ask, they say my pleasure. They call you ma'am and sir, which isn't, I know that's kind of unique to this part of the world, but they're very polite. And if they get anything wrong about your order, it's like it's free, or they throw in this milkshake for you. They go above and beyond, even if they weren't wrong. They just really put customers first. And so people keep going to Chick-fil-A, and there's a lot of people that do great wills as well, make great trusts. There's other good lawyers, but people come here because of the way they feel. And, we treat them with that same, like you said, that Southern hospitality of my pleasure. And the client's always right here as well. So even if we don't think they are, they are. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, client first, I mean, far too many people don't really think through the receptionist, the
mhm.
first point of contact. It's first impressions, right?
Yes.
And I'd much rather call, and you can tell when you're speaking with someone on the phone whether they're smiling or not, or if they're having a
Yes.
decent day, or if I show up in your reception area, if you're greeted with that warm smile, and yeah, it's amazing. And then having three people that I know I'm not going to get into the voicemail, and
Yeah.
unless it's Sunday, like I can't go to Chick-fil-A on Sunday either.
That's true.
So
That's true. And Saturday, that's true, to be
right.
fair, and at night. But yeah, business hours. And a couple of my receptionists, they have been invited to go to dinner with clients, like because they also greet the clients when they walk in the door if they come in person, and they're getting invitations socially from people because they're so kind and good to people. So that makes me very happy.
That's great. Well, hey, as you know, this podcast is called Estate Planning Nightmares and
Mhm.
How to Avoid Them. And so I know you've helped hundreds, probably thousands of families through the planning and administration. But without, like, obviously naming any names, can you share a case or situation that turned into a nightmare or was a potential nightmare, and how it was resolved or prevented?
Yeah, so there's so many, but this is just a recent one, and it also hits close to home because it was a good friend of mine, and her husband died I guess it's close to 2 years now. But he passed away, and he had his will in place and everything, and they didn't come to me, and that's okay. But the will was the will was done okay, but they misplaced the original will, so they had a copy of the will, and knowing where your original documents are is really important. It saves a lot of steps and time in the probate process if you don't have a trust. So if you have a trust, you don't go through probate at all generally, but they didn't have a trust, they had a will. So we helped her get witnesses and get the hearing to make sure get the will declared valid. So that's a good 6 months process. And then the other part that was a mistake, and I don't know if it was probably on the part of the life insurance salesman, but they had a large life insurance policy, and her husband had named for the life insurance. I don't think it was her husband. She thinks it was a mistake. But on the life insurance policy, she was named half. She got half of the money. And her son, who's only 12 years old, he was named as the beneficiary of the other half of the policy. And so what that means, he's a minor. The life insurance company can't write a check to a 12-year-old. And so it was a large amount of money. It was $500,000. And so that's money she didn't have to be raising her kids with. It took us a year and a half while we waited for the will to be declared valid and for another court proceeding, which is called the guardianship proceeding around here, so that she could be appointed the guardian to take care of that life insurance money for her 12-year-old. But the worst part is that $500,000 is now stuck in what we call a restricted account here. And so she has another child too. So, and of course, kids are expensive, So she can't take money out of that account for the use of her son without asking the court for money. And so she has to provide receipts and reasons, and she has to submit something to the court every time. So it's going to be a nightmare, not just for this year. She got appointed and everything, but till he turns 18. And then when he's 18, she's smart. She's got that money invested, so it's earning interest. It's going to be worth hopefully more than 500,000. And he's 18 years old and he's got full access to that. So that's a really big nightmare that could have been prevented if he hadn't named his son as beneficiary on a life insurance policy. And so that is just free advice. You don't even need an estate lawyer for that. Just free advice. Check your beneficiary designations on any bank account, life insurance, 401k, IRA. Just make sure you've got beneficiaries named that are adults that are capable of handling that much money. And don't ever name your grandkid, niece, nephew, anyone that's under 18, or you're setting their family up for a big hassle. And there's, of course, some solutions around that without naming beneficiaries. So you could put it in a trust for the kids, all the things an estate planning attorney could help you do. That would be an ideal, so that the son gets some money when he's 18, some at 25. Yeah, so that was just a real big headache, and honestly, a year and a half of her life. And there's two other attorneys. Well, I'm involved, and then there was an attorney appointed to represent her son's best interests. So it's not cheap either.
Yeah, that's the thing I tell people all the time. I mean, you never can name a minor child ever
Right.
on a life insurance
And it's a
policy.
common mistake. I actually did it when I was younger. Like I didn't know any better. So
Yeah, and so clearly you want an adult. Maybe if you're just working with a will, right? Name a contingent beneficiary as another adult, but then have something established within the will that money should go to
a trust for the
here,
kids.
and
Yes.
yeah,
And
you
even
broken
naming
up.
another adult is risky. I think, oh, maybe I want to name my brother Mark, and he's a great brother and he's good with money. But if my brother, if he ever got divorced, that money is now in his name. So his wife, he's got a great wife for what it's worth. In theory, she could take half that money in their divorce proceedings. So yeah, it's not always the best idea. So talk to an estate lawyer. There's a lot of ways to protect life insurance, which is a really great thing to have when you have especially minor children.
Oh,
Good to have
absolutely.
life insurance for them kids. So, and I
Yeah,
don't sell life insurance, but it's just a promo there.
yeah, that's the thing. And by the way, sorry, Mark. She just make an example.
That's right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, if you have children, um, and you've got some assets like life insurance and those kind of things, I mean, invest just a little bit more, get a
Yeah,
trust, because in that trust you can spell out exactly what you want to have happen with those
yeah.
monies, and never leave $500,000 to your 18-year-old. Because I know if I had gotten $500,000 when I was
Oh,
18 years old, by the time I was 20, I would have zero.
I think the same. I might have a cool car, but yeah.
Right. Have to be working to put the gas in it, but
Yeah, yeah. So,
oh
and that's a
boy.
common one. We deal with that all the time. That's one of the most common things we do. People
Yeah.
leaving assets to minor children. So,
So what's like one misconception that you hear often from clients about wills or trusts that you wish you could clear up for everybody?
Yeah, so a couple come to mind actually. So a lot of people think if they have a will that they will not go through probate. And so probate is the process after you die where you report the deceased person's assets to the court so that they can change the title and so they can make sure that the assets go to the right people. And so people think if you have a will, you don't have to go through that probate process with the court, which in South Carolina and North Carolina, it takes about a year or more average estate. So it's a long time that your assets could be held up before you can distribute them to the rightful beneficiaries. So a will is great because it does decide who your executor is, and it does tell the world who you want the assets to go to. So the assets will go to the right people, but it'll be slower because it'll have to go through the probate court. Whereas if you have a trust, that avoids the probate court because the courts only care about people's assets, and a trust is not a living person. So the court they don't really care about that. That's a contract you made. So it's outside of their purview. So
Yeah.
that's a common misconception about wills. The other common misconception is people confuse a will with a power of attorney. So they think they have a will and they've named an executor in the will. And the executor is someone who carries out your wishes after you die to make sure the assets go to the right people. And they're the ones communicating with the court. But the executor doesn't have any power over your assets until you're deceased. And so some people think that the executor in a will is also your power of attorney. But a power of attorney is someone you appoint to take care of your assets while you are alive. And so there are two different documents. The will doesn't have any power until you're deceased. The power of attorney gives someone authority, if you got Alzheimer's or you're in a coma or something, that they can take care of your assets, pay your bills, call Medicaid for you, all those things.
And that stops the minute you no longer have a pulse.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So that's
So they
only like
can't
while you're alive.
do anything after that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. The other, again, for people who have children, it's critically important that you name guardians. And, I hear far too often from people, well, so and so and so and so are his or her godparents.
Yeah.
Godparents has no legal status whatsoever. Am I correct?
Right. Unfortunately, they might be the best people in the world,
Right.
but when they go to the court, they don't really have legal status standing. It's the next of kin who would have first priority if they wanted to. So yeah, you're right. And also sometimes your next of kin is not who you want to take care of the kids. You might want it to be the godparents. So yes, so get a will if you want it to be the godparents. You could name the godparents in the will as the guardians, and that's who the court would give first priority to.
And it'd be so much easier because then they'd be there to raise them with whatever religious values that you want them to have,
Yes.
and they'd be with them all the time.
Yes, and then you got peace of mind knowing they're with people that love your kids, right? And then they're going to look out for what's best for them and not take
Uh,
advantage of them.
exactly. So let's just touch quickly on personal life and what I always like to call my lightning round. Um,
Okay.
you're not just an attorney, a lawyer. You're a runner, a pickleball player, a teen mentor, a grandchild spoiler, aren't we all?
I
Uh,
know they're the best.
and a
And they do call
certified.
me grandma. They do call me grandma. I just, when I'm with them, it's okay.
I know, I know. We've got a couple of grandkids, and I am way too young to be a grandparent. At
Yeah,
least
that's how
in
I feel.
my brain. When I look in the mirror, it says something different, but I don't feel it.
Yes.
Um, so, and of course, an '80s music fan. Yes.
I know.
Um, what's one thing people would be surprised to learn about you that not a lot of people know?
Oh, wow. That's a good question.
Mhm.
Probably those things you said that I think a lot of people are surprised that I'm a grandma. I actually have five grandkids. And so unless I say that, people aren't aware of that.
Oh, that's
And
awesome. Well, yeah, you don't look, I mean, like a grandmother. Okay. Look far too young for that. So, I imagine surprises people when you say, yes, I'm a grandmother of five
yeah,
and
and the other
counting.
thing that it's obvious to everyone on the podcast, but I used to think this was not a compliment, but I have a lot of people tell me that they say, "You're too nice to be a lawyer. You're a lawyer? Like, you're a lawyer? You're too nice to be a lawyer." Like they're very surprised when they meet me. When I tell them what my profession is, it's very surprising to people. So now I think it's a compliment. But in the beginning, I thought, oh, maybe I wasn't meant to be a lawyer. I don't know.
Well, you have personality, and a lot of attorneys don't. Sorry to all my attorney friends that you know who I'm talking about. So, what's your favorite '80s band?
Depeche Mode.
Nice, nice.
Probably because
Lo-
it's who I saw most recently, right? So they did a tour last year. Maybe some of you hit it. They came to Atlanta, which wasn't far from here. So
Oh, wow. What's the most used phrase in your office?
it's one of our core values actually, and that's 1% better. And so it's not even coming out of my mouth; it comes out of their mouths. And so we say 1% better. Just we want to be 1% better. Just I started out with the company like let's make the company. If we just make little changes, we're 1% better. Every day that compounds over time, and pretty soon we'll be amazing because we can't change everything at once. And then it also just started to be like, oh, let's be 1% better to our clients. How do we make our clients' lives 1% better? What can we do to like surprise and delight them? Maybe sometimes we have treats and stuff for our clients when they come to sign their wills or something that's surprising. Like, oh, wow, fresh chocolates and cookies. Like, wow. Like, yeah. So how do we make that experience just 1% better? And then as an employer, as I evolved over time, I had no idea that the company would grow this big. I just thought it'd be me and a paralegal, honestly. But as it has, you feel this responsibility like, how do I make my employees' lives 1% better? How can I make this workplace 1% better? How can I structure, our costs and expenses so that I could pay my employees just 1% better? What can I do to make their lives 1% better? And I find that pretty rewarding as an owner of a company to be able to think in those kind of terms. So
I love that. 1% better for the office, 1% better for the employees, 1% better for the clients, 1% better for the future client. How does the person that's just inquiring, how do we make ourselves better? And it's like the Japanese saying kaizen, right? Continuous improvement, and
I like that.
clearly, that's how it's either Toyota or Honda. One of them deployed that whole philosophy of just this continuous improvement, and look at where they are today, right? So it works, and clearly 1% works for a woman starting a legal practice in 2018 and now has 32 employees and all the clients. So you're doing all the right stuff, right?
Yeah, and of course we haven't done everything perfectly and we make mistakes and there's ups and downs, but yeah, it's been fun.
All right.
Um,
So what is a legal word that you wish would just disappear forever? Is there some term or phrase or word that's just make it go away?
That's a good question, but honestly, as a lawyer, when I'm reading documents and they pull out these Latin phrases that you learned in law school and then you can't remember them, I know that doesn't maybe apply to clients as much, but so I don't want anyone to feel bad when you're reading a legal contract and you see something in Latin and you're like, what is that? And I have to Google it myself. So you're good company.
Yeah,
We'll get rid
absolutely.
of
It's
Latin.
like,
We speak English now. Let's just use.
yes, why are legal documents so hard to read? Right. Uh, I don't know. I was thinking about that when I threw that question there. I was just like what? Because there is one word that I just don't like. I
Okay,
mean,
what's that? Yeah, I'm
it's
interested.
a necessity, but if it could just disappear, it would be probate.
Oh, okay.
Just make it go away. Let's do away with that, right? Make things easier for everybody else. But I know
Yes,
there's a
and
lot
we
of
love probate here. We're the nerds that way because yeah, it's actually a rewarding area of practice because you get to help people at a real big time of need in their life and try to relieve some of that stress because everybody hates it. It's stressful, it's overwhelming. And it's
yeah.
rewarding to be able to say, oh, we got this for you. Just sit back and just sign these documents and we'll get it all taken care of for
Yeah,
you.
the goal is to avoid it, but
Yes, but
most people can't because they're not. doing the right estate plan or the right trust, and so you have to help them with it. So
Yeah, they just didn't know. It's like a lack of education. So yeah, we go out a lot in the community and just do free education wherever. Any Rotary Club or any club you belong to will come speak for free. Just sometimes just a little bit of education can just solve a lot of these problems on the back end. Just like we talked about naming beneficiaries the correct way. You didn't even have to pay for that advice. It's such a simple thing to do. So
yeah. And last question. Um, what's one piece of advice that you'd give your younger self for our younger attorneys who are listening?
for younger attorneys, don't stop learning and don't be afraid to admit that you don't know things. So when I was first practicing, even when I worked at firms and I, had other attorneys I could ask questions to when I didn't know legal answers, I would ask, but sometimes they're busy. And attorneys, they have and at least in the North and South Carolina, we have a listserv. So it's all the attorneys in estate planning. We can ask each other questions. And so I posted on there a lot because I didn't know a lot, you know. And now in return, I'm the one answering the questions on there. I try to help out. But I had a friend say to me once, she said, "Oh, Holly," she's like, "I'm so glad you posted that question." She's like, "I'm always too afraid to post a question on there because people will think I don't know what I'm talking about." She's like, "You're so brave. You just put it out there." And I just thought, I think that differentiated me because I don't know everything. No lawyer knows everything. And not being afraid to learn, whether it be about the law and then as well about business too, just like keep learning. Don't be afraid to stop learning. I didn't know how to run a business. And so I hired business coaches, and I'm just very up, how do I do this? How do I read a profit and loss? All the things you don't teach you in law school. And yeah, my friends that aren't as willing to go out and learn and admit they don't know things, it really does hold you back. And no one in life expects, nobody knows everything. And the older you get, the more you realize nobody knows everything and that we'll never know everything ourselves. So,
Well, exactly. If you don't know and you don't ask, you're not getting 1% better, right?
yeah, yeah.
But asking the questions and learning, it's my 1% each day.
Yeah, and don't be
So,
afraid to, sometimes when you're younger, you may not have you don't feel like you have the confidence to ask those questions because you assume people think, yeah, you should know what you're talking about, but they don't assume that. So,
yeah, never assume. Hey, Holly, this has been a blast.
yeah, thank
Very,
you.
very, very insightful, incredibly human. Um, Before we go, can you tell our listeners where they can learn more about you, Simpson Law Firm, connect, or just say hi?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so we have our website is simpsonestatelaw.com. And on there, yeah, you can read all about if you have legal questions. We have pretty extensive legal blog that answers a lot of legal questions people might have. That's you can find on the website. For people in the Carolinas, you can actually book appointments online. And our estate planning sessions are free if you want to come learn about wills and trusts or talk about those things. And then we are also on Facebook. It's Simpson Estate Law. We're on Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, so all the places.
Awesome. And I'm going to make it super easy for all our audience. All of Holly's contact information, the LinkedIn, the Instagram, Facebook, her website, URL, everything will be below in the show notes.
Well, thank you.
Holly, thank you. Thank you again for sharing
Yeah,
your
thank you,
time, your
John. That was a
wisdom.
pleasure.
Yeah. Um, you're proof that estate planning can be personable, approachable, and even a little bit fun. And to all of you, our listeners, if today's episode hit home for you, don't wait for a crisis. Start the conversation, ask the questions. And if you're lucky enough to be in North or South Carolina, reach out to Holly and the team at Simpson Law. Until next time, plan smart, live fully. Don't let your legacy become someone else's nightmare because your life is your legacy. So remember to plan ahead and make it a great day.